Steve Sarkisian says there will be no spring game for the Texas Longhorns in 2025. That was on an appearance this morning on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams here in Austin. There were reports that this was being considered, and the head coach of the Texas Longhorns football team made it official this morning. There will be no orange-white scrimmage down on campus this year, and I am not happy about it at all. What's up, guys and gals? Welcome in to another edition of the BK Show, another live edition of the BK Show. You know, it's funny. I had a whole live stream planned for today. We were going to go live at around 1 o'clock and talk about Texas's new running backs coach, Chad Scott. I was going to tell you all about him, why I think it's a good hire, why I think Steve Sarkisian knows what he's doing, and what Texas is going to get with their new running backs coach. That's what I thought today was going to be, a positive day where I was talking positively about the newest member of Texas football's coaching staff. And instead, we get this. And I know I did a video about this a couple of weeks ago, again, when the reports came down that the Longhorns were considering the cancellation of the orange-white scrimmage. But now that the news is official, I figured we had to go live and do an emergency epi talking about this. So no spring game today. Steve Sarkisian. Here's the exact quote. I'm going to read the quote from Steve Sarkisian on Up and Adams today. He said, quote, "We're not going to have a spring game. I think a couple reasons why. Over the last 2 years, we've played 30 games. That's a lot for college football. 14 2 years ago, 16 this year. And I just mentioned we've had 25 guys get invited to the NFL Combine the last 2 years. So we've got a lot of young players on our roster. We have 21 mid-year high school kids that just showed up. And so the development that's needed for these guys to get ready for the fall is a little different than it used to be. So our approach is going to be a little bit more NFL driven, kind of more of an OTA style early on. And as we grow into more of the scrimmage formats in the second half of spring ball, I just don't know rolling the ball out, playing the game when we only get 15 practices is the best for us to maximize the opportunities that we get. So it's going to be a little bit of a different approach. But I think college football is changing right now, and we need to do a great job of as coaches, of adapting to college football. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think it's going to be good for our team. End quote. That's Steve Sarkisian. That's the reasoning. You know, Matt Rule at Nebraska was quoted a couple of weeks ago talking about tampering being the reason that he was considering canceling the spring game up in Lincoln. He was mad that after Nebraska's spring game in 2024, I think 6 of their players entered the transfer portal and ended up going elsewhere. He felt like other schools across the country were watching the Nebraska spring game on TV. They were getting some extra intel on some of their young players, and they were offering them the bag in NIL money to hit the portal and go transfer to their respective schools. Steve Sarkisian did not mention any of that in his answer to Kay Adams this morning. He did not talk about tampering. I don't know if Steve Sarkisian's worried about tampering. I thought Matt Rule saying that was a little bit ridiculous because coaches don't rely on spring games to figure out what players they want to add to their roster. And if they are, that's a bad strategy. No, they look at what they see in the fall. They're recruiting the kids out of high school. They look at high school tape. And then when they get to college, they look at what happens during the actual games in the fall. And I'm here to tell you, they don't need a spring game to tamper with your kids, right? They can get the intel that they're looking for from plenty of people around the college football world. So I thought that answer for Matt Rule was ridiculous. I would have been really ticked off if Steve Sarkisian gave that type of answer to why he's canceling the orange-white scrimmage game in Austin. But either way, I think it's a joke. I think it's a total slap in the face to Texas Longhorn fans, especially in this era of college football, right? Steve Sarkisian talks about the ever-changing landscape of college football, and there is no doubt that it's ever-changing. I mean, this sport has changed more in the last 5 years than it changed in the first 25 years of my life. It's ridiculous what's been going on, and it's almost hard to keep up with everything that's been happening in college football. But one of the changes that has occurred is the rise of NIL, which means the rise in asking your fan base to pay more money to support a college football program. And that's what's happening with Texas. Like, Texas fans are paying for Steve Sarkisian's $10.5 million salary. They are paying for the players that allow Steve Sarkisian to continue to get contract extensions and raises every single year. They are paying for facilities upgrades that are seemingly going on the University of Texas campus every single year. Now, with the expanded college football playoff, you're asking this fan base to spend more money on travel and game tickets and hotels to all of these extra college football playoff games every single year. So the cost to be a college football fan has always been high, and it's gradually been increasing, but now it's getting higher and higher exponentially with what's been happening in this sport. And you're asking the fans to give all of that money year in and year out, yet you can't take 2 hours of your spring to have a spring football game? You can't take 2 hours of the entire year to give this fan base that gives all of this money to support the program the opportunity to watch their favorite team play in the middle of the offseason. Seriously? Like, you are telling this fan base that gives so much money that they have to go from January 10th to August 30th before they get the chance to even watch their favorite football team play. That is pathetic to me. And maybe this is the start of a trend across college football. Maybe Steve Sarkisian is just, I don't want to say he's first in line because Matt Rule talked about it a few weeks ago. And hell, Lane Kiffin basically had a hogwash spring game, a fugazi spring game at Ole Miss last season. So Sark's not the first guy to do this, but maybe this is the start of a concerning trend in college football where fan bases, where schools ask their fan bases to give more money than ever before. And, in return, we're just going to slap you in the face and not let you watch your favorite team play for 8 months. That's pathetic. Forrest says coaches are absolutely using intel for spring game on all play. If you're a coach that's not good enough to overcome other teams watching your spring game, you should find another line of work. Like, most coaches keep their spring game playbooks incredibly vanilla. Number one, because they haven't been able to install their entire playbook because there's only been 14 spring practices. So there's just not enough time to get everybody up to speed with everything that you're trying to do. Number two, if you can't have more than just what you show during a spring game, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, that's a horrible excuse to me too. If you're not a good enough coach to come up with a game plan for the spring that's different from the game plan you actually have in the fall, that is sorry, man. And I'm a fan first. Like, this is why I'm a Texas fan. I was a fan ever before I got into the media. I love watching the spring game every single year. I love going to the spring game. If I can't make it to DKR, I love watching the game on TV. It's an opportunity for fans to get to watch their favorite players. I mean, last year, how excited were we to get the chance to see Arch Manning play as the backup, right? He was the backup quarterback, and we were all pumped to see what he could do. Yeah, we knew it was a scrimmage. Yeah, we knew it didn't count for anything, but we still got to watch the future of Texas football get out there and play for a little bit because fans don't have access to practices. Yeah, other media members aren't going to get as mad about this as I am because they get to go watch spring ball every once in a while. But this was the only chance fans could see Arch Manning, Trey Wisner, C.J. Baxter coming off of injury, Ryan Wingo in year 2, DeAndre Moore. I mean, the list goes on and on. This was the only opportunity that Texas fans were going to get to watch their favorite players play. And it's 2 hours. You don't have to have a full 4-quarter, 60-minute spring game. I don't need that. But I want something to reward the fans and to thank the fans for everything that they do for your program. And I think the players enjoy it too. It's an opportunity for them to play a game in front of people. You don't get to practice in front of fans. People like playing in front of people. That's the fun part of being a college football player, getting to do your job and do everything that you've worked for in front of tens of thousands of fans. You don't give the players the chance to do that. And again, more importantly, you don't give the fans the opportunity to do that. It sucks. Some of the changes happening in college football are good. Some of them I can agree with. This is one that I can't agree with right now. It's a total slap in the face. It's a Tom Herman double bird from Steve Sarkisian. And I don't think this is a Sark-only decision, right? Chris Del Conte could have shut this down. Somebody on campus could have shut this down. They could have said, hey, we're having a spring game. Like, find a way to make it work. All right? You had a spring game last year. You made it to the college football playoff. Ohio State had a spring game last year. They won the national championship game. It didn't cost them. They played a bunch of games. It didn't cost them a national championship, did it? Didn't cost them the opportunity to have a really good football team in the fall. Like, that's ridiculous. That's a horrible excuse. It doesn't impact the style of play. Everybody, you know who didn't have a spring game last year? Ole Miss. They were one of the most disappointing teams in football. Now, is that correlation equaling causation? Probably not. It's probably not the reason Ole Miss didn't make the college football playoff. But they didn't have a spring game last year. They missed the playoff. All 12 teams that made it to the CFP, they had a spring game. They turned out all right. So I just think, man, I think you owe it to the fans, especially now in this era where they are giving more money than ever before. And ticket prices are on the rise, and they're going to continue to increase, and they're going to continue to ask more money so they can get more players and better facilities to make sure that they can keep up with the Joneses and continue to compete at the top level of college football. But you're not going to give the fans this. This is so minor. This is so minor to reward your fans with a spring game. I'm not asking for open practices throughout the year. I'm not asking for 2 spring games. I'm saying take a couple of hours out of your April and give the fans a little something. I mean, Texas had 40,000 people show up at DKR and tens of thousands more watch the game last year. Year one of Arch Manning as the starter at Texas, Texas could have gotten 60, 70,000 people at the stadium. People want to see this team. They want something to talk about. And it's not just the quarterback. They want to look at these freshmen. There's 22 early enrollees that Texas has in this class. I want to see what Jonah Williams can do. I want to see what Justice Terry can do in a game-like situation. I don't want to wait till August 30th to see what these guys can do in a game or something very close to it. 22 of these kids. I want to see what the offensive line looks like without 4 starters from last year's squad. I want to see what Cole Brevard and Travis Shaw and Brad Spence and these other transfers. Hell, I want to watch the punter. I want to see what Jack Bomeister can do as punter. I want to see if Bert Auburn remembers how to make field goals. Like, now we'll just have to read these insider sites, and we'll be talking about it on this channel, but everything that I'll be talking about is from 10, 15-minute media practice windows or from insider reports online. That ain't the same. That ain't the same. I'll take your comments, by the way. You agree? Do you disagree? Comment. All opinions are welcome. You're not going to change my mind on this. If you think it's not that big of a deal, that's fine. I admit I think this is a bigger deal than most people out there do. Because I think it's a slap in the face. I think it's a bad look for the University of Texas, and I think it's soft, to be perfectly honest with you. So if you don't feel that vehemently about this as I do, then that's okay. But if you are in favor of this, if you think this is a good idea that Texas is canceling its spring game, I'd love to hear from you, because I don't think I can be swayed that much in the other direction. Yeah, CB says, how will we see Thatcher Milton now? The legend of Thatcher Milton last year. Nobody would know who that guy was if it wasn't for the spring game. Kevin says, with the incorporation of NIL money to players, health is now at a premium, thus the pussification of college football. Look, I mean, health has always been at a premium. Like, Texas didn't get anybody hurt in the spring game last year. If you want to use the health argument, like it's too big of a risk to put somebody out in a spring game, Texas didn't get anybody hurt last year. The 2 guys who got seriously injured got hurt in fall practice. What, you're going to cancel that too because you're worried about health? We're just not going to have any practice before the first game of the year because C.J. Baxter tore his knee up and Christian Clark tore up his Achilles. We can't do that anymore because we're too worried about guys getting hurt. No, it's ridiculous. You're not hitting as hard as you do in a spring game as you would in an actual game in the fall. So, I mean, health has always mattered. You've never wanted to get anybody hurt in a spring game, but I don't know if NIL has anything to do with that. And again, most spring games go off without a hitch. And Texas has gone on for the last couple of years without a hitch. I don't know. Forrest says, so let Sark just show how good Trey Owens is so he can get offered starter money and raise the price. Nah. I mean, Trey Owens looked really good last year in the spring game, and that got me excited. I'm excited about what Trey Owens can do as the potential starter for Texas Longhorn football. I'm not worried about him getting offered starter money somewhere else and Texas having to raise the price. I'm not worried about Trey Owens leaving right now. I think Trey Owens would be silly to leave right now. He's at the University of Texas where he's a play away from being the starter for the Texas Longhorns. He's going to go leave after the spring to go compete for a job at a lesser school somewhere else. I don't think he'd do that. I don't think he has any interest in doing that. And if Texas really loves Trey Owens, they'll make sure he sticks around. Trey Owens played well last year. Trey Owens was a high school recruit. A bunch of teams wanted him out of high school. He ended up signing with Texas for a reason. Not worried about that. Malik Murphy looked good in some spring games. He didn't leave until he realized the writing was on the wall that he was never going to get to be the starting quarterback at Texas. Maybe that happens with Trey Owens down the road. If KJ Lacey comes in and he's better than Trey Owens, then maybe Trey Owens will end up leaving Texas. But I'm not worried about him putting on a good performance on the spring game and leaving after the spring. Just don't think that's going to happen. And also some of these other guys, like the guys Nebraska lost last year, they were young, inexperienced players. You're talking about maybe losing a fourth stringer. And Texas didn't lose anybody to the portal after last year's orange-white scrimmage game. So I don't think that's much of a problem for Texas football. And the guys, if Texas was going to lose anybody after the orange-white scrimmage, it's probably because they told them, hey, there's not going to be much playing time for you during the actual season. So maybe consider looking somewhere else. I'm not worried about actual tampering with Texas. Guys know who's good at Texas. All right. They don't need a spring game to figure that one out. I'm annoyed, y'all. I am annoyed. I was really looking forward to the spring game. I look forward to it every single year. And it just feels like a total slap in the face for Texas to get rid of this game. It really does. It's a convenient excuse Steve Sarkisian can use. The fact that Texas played into January, the fact that these college football seasons are longer than they've ever been, that's convenient. You could point to that, and I'm sure some fans will side with that and say, oh, that's fine. You know what? He's right. They play enough games. We don't even need the spring game. Let these guys just heal up, get healthy, whatever. We don't need anything like that. My point is, you can have a spring game and still win a national championship. Some people have said, oh, if canceling the spring game means Texas is going to win it all next year, wouldn't you cancel the spring game? Well, of course I would. But again, the team that won the national championship and both teams that played for the title in January, they had spring games last year. Every team that has won a national championship in this sport has had a spring game. I shouldn't say that. I don't know how far back the concept of the spring game goes. But in the modern era of college football, everybody who's won it all has had a spring game, and it hasn't cost them the opportunity to compete for and win the whole enchilada. So I don't get that argument against it. I don't know. Oh, by the way, if everyone else follows this trend, then everyone else will be on an equal playing field. If Texas is the only major team that doesn't have a spring game this year, and everybody else who has one gets guys hurt and they suck in the fall, maybe Sark's on to something. But I don't buy it. Tanner says this feels NIL driven. Like the players are maybe, I should say the players' agents are maybe telling the coaches that they don't want to participate in a spring game. Hey, my client's not going to come to your school if you make them play in a scrimmage. Maybe that's the case. The agents have more power in this sport than they ever have before. There's no doubt about that. That's a big adjustment to college football. Maybe that is the case. I don't know. I can't find a way. USC has also canceled their spring game as well. Yeah, I think this is going to be something that potentially starts a trend in college football. I don't like it. I don't like that Texas is doing it. I don't like that anybody is doing it. Duty says this is a bad move. If Texas has problems in the red zone next season, it's time to have a hard conversation about Sark. Oh, man. Look, if Texas makes it to the Final Four of the college football playoff, then I don't think we have to have hard conversations about Sark. The red zone offense, it needs to improve, and hopefully Texas improving that gets them over the hump and actually gets them to the national championship game, which is the next step in the progression for this program. But yeah, the red zone issues are annoying. And God, I wanted to see that too. I just wanted to see in this orange-white scrimmage, Texas line up under center on a goal line situation or on a 4th and short situation and just run a quarterback sneak. I would have given a giant standing ovation at DKR if they did just that. Just show me that you have the ability to run a quarterback sneak or a tush push or both. Why not? Do something to give me some confidence that you're going to have those short yardage woes figured out when we get to the fall. And I get it. It's just a scrimmage, and playing Ohio State on the road on August 30th is a little bit different than playing at home against your own teammates. But give me something to believe that you are actually working on trying to address those red zone problems that have cost you in the college football playoff semifinals in each of the last 2 seasons. Just wanted to see a quarterback sneak, man. I'm not asking for much. Am I? Is that too much to ask for? Hell, if Texas just wants to run a goal line offense for an hour at DKR in an event that's open to the public, then that's better than nothing. You got to do something to reward the fans. And maybe that's in the cards. Maybe there will be a fan appreciation day or something at the end of spring ball where some fans can go by and get autographs and take pictures and meet their favorite Longhorns. Maybe there's something like that, and that's better than nothing. You at least give the fans a little bit if you do that. But I know I don't speak for all the fans when I say I want to actually watch football instead of all that other stuff, but I actually want to watch football instead of all that other stuff. Doesn't have to be by the rules. Hell, Tom Herman a couple of years ago had to amend the rules of the spring game because Texas didn't have enough offensive linemen to play. All right. You got to do something a little bit different. You can't play a full 60-minute game. You got to change the rules a little bit. It's all right. But you're still giving the fans something. You're giving them a reward for everything they do for your program. You only have jobs because of the fans. Don't give them the Tom Herman double bird right now, please. Especially right now. A mess. Seems soft. I agree with you, Steven. I don't think that's a good enough excuse. I mean, Texas having 21 high school early enrollees that just showed up. They need practice. Well, give them a game-like situation to practice in. Let them play in front of fans. The spring game doesn't get a full house at DKR. There won't be 100,000 people who watch, but there would be 50, 60, 70K this year. None of these kids have ever played in front of a crowd like that in their lives. This is the closest thing you can do to replicating what they're going to see at Ohio Stadium on the last day of August. Give them a chance in a game-like situation in front of real people to show what they've got. Some guys are good practice players. Some guys are good game players. Maybe you learn a thing or two when you let these guys actually perform against people, in front of people. Also, I don't understand how Texas having a bunch of players getting invited to the combine means they shouldn't have a spring game. I don't know, man. I don't know. I get it. Not every coach is a fan of this. Coaches like practice more than the spring game, but you could do both. You can absolutely do both. We'll go for a couple more minutes here. We will save the Chad Scott video for later today. That won't be alive. We'll record that and then post it on this channel later this afternoon because I've got some thoughts about Texas's new running back coach. And then tomorrow, I might talk about a potential transfer that the Longhorns could be adding from West Virginia. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel. If you're not already, make sure you like this video too, please, if you are here for the live. Because we got plenty of Chad Scott content as Steve Sarkisian has rounded out his coaching staff. And again, I was going to be very positive today. I was going to be praising Sark for the Chad Scott hire and what's coming to the Texas run game. But then he pulls this one on us. And then on Kay Adams' show, maybe, here's a theory. Kay Adams is really hot. Sometimes attractive people make you uncomfortable. Sometimes they make you say things that you don't actually mean. You see a hot chick at a bar and sometimes you're just fumbling through your words trying to figure out what to say, and you end up saying something that's incredibly stupid or something that you don't actually mean. Maybe that's what happened here. Maybe Steve Sarkisian was smitten by the gorgeous Kay Adams, and he's like, oh shit, let me say something to impress her. I don't even know what I'm saying here. Maybe that's what it was. And Steve Sarkisian will actually come out later today or tomorrow and say, no, I didn't actually mean that. We're actually going to have a spring game. It's all good. No need to freak out, BK. No need to freak out, Texas fans. Maybe that's what this is. Well, that's a reach and a half, isn't it? I don't think that's what we're getting. But again, I'll wrap this up here in a second just by saying that this is bad, man. It's disrespectful to a fan base that is very loyal, very passionate, and is now giving more than ever before in a literal sense, not just in an emotional sense, in a literal sense. And now you're talking about expanding the playoff even more to 14, maybe 16 teams, which means potentially another round of the college football playoff, which means another game that fans have to pay for. And oh, by the way, they're about to add a ninth conference game to the SEC schedule, and the SEC might be partnering with the Big Ten to play a non-conference game against one another every year, which means, hey, we're going to ask you for more money because if we want to win all of these extra games that we're playing, we need better players. So, hey, TexasOneFund.org, help support the school. Keep giving. Keep giving. We're not going to we're not going to give you anything more in return, but we want you to keep giving more to us. You want a spring game? You want a chance to watch your football team play in the offseason? No, we're not going to give you that, but we do want you to keep donating money to us, please. We're going to raise your season ticket prices as well because of all of these new games that we've got on our schedule. Don't expect anything more in return, though. Just keep giving. Keep donating. We can't sacrifice 2 to 3 hours of our Saturday in the spring. You're not important enough to us. But keep giving. Please. Please keep giving your hard-earned money so we can play football in the fall. Good point by Dez. The spring game was usually a big recruiting weekend as well. Maybe the biggest recruiting weekend of the entire spring. I don't know how you replace that. I mean, you're still going to have official visit weekends and unofficial visit weekends, and sure, guys will still find their way to the University of Texas campus, but it's a big recruiting weekend as well. And that's going away. So it's tough. I agree, AJ. Bad for the fans, bad for recruits. I think it's bad for the players, too. Clearly, Steve Sarkisian doesn't. Sark knows more about that than I do. But I think it's just an opportunity for the players to get to showcase their skills in front of people. It's what they want to do. That's why you go to Texas instead of going to North Texas, instead of going to Incarnate Word, because you like playing in front of crowds. You like getting the opportunity to show what you could do in front of people. Not giving them the chance to do that. Bad for content, bad for the fans. I don't think it's good for the players. But keep donating. They'll take your money, and they're going to ask you for more. Get ready for it. All right, that's going to do it for this video. Unless you'll have some final comments, let me know. I talked yesterday about trying to do a daily live stream on this channel. I was thinking maybe 1 o'clock as the time for that. Obviously started this one a little bit earlier with the breaking news that dropped. I wanted to get out on this early. But if y'all have suggestions for when a daily live stream would make sense and when you would like to watch a daily live stream on this channel, please comment below or comment with the live chat as well, whatever you want to say. I'm trying to figure out a time that works best, but we'll continue to do more live streams and we'll continue to pump out daily Texas Longhorn content right here on the BK Show. This is your one-stop shop for Texas Longhorn content. We'll have more great interviews coming up as well as this thing continues to grow. Des says, Heather Dinich of ESPN just talked to Chris Del Conte and said the spring game is going away for the players to rest. Got it. Yeah, I figured that's what Steve Sarkisian said. I figured that's what they would hide behind, right? And they know that fans can't get too angry about that. Oh, we want our players to rest and we want them to be healthy for the fall. A lot of fans who just agree with whatever their school does. Okay, whatever. I agree with that. That's fine. Perfectly cool with that. But you get plenty of rest after the spring game. You got the rest of the spring and you got the entirety of the summer to rest up for the fall. And I get it. Guys are still working out. They're not stopping completely and checking out for 4 or 5 months. But after the spring game last year was on April 20th. Texas didn't play its first college football game until August 31st. More than 4 months of rest between game-like situations. You could play a spring game and still give your guys some rest. Yeah, sorry to let you know, Chris and Steve. All right, thank you all for watching. That's going to do it for this live stream. Until next time, remember, when you watch the BK Show, you rule. Appreciate the love. See y'all soon. Hook 'em.